The United States on Tuesday said that it was not certain who was to blame for a breach in a dam in Ukraine, but it would not make sense for Ukraine to have done this to its own people and territory, as Kyiv and Moscow blamed each other for the disaster. The 15-member UN Security Council met on Tuesday after a torrent of water burst through a massive dam on the Dnipro River that separates the opposing forces in southern Ukraine. UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths told the Security Council that the sheer magnitude of the catastrophe will only become fully realized in the coming days. Hundreds of people were evacuated from settlements along the southern stretch of Ukraine's Dnipro River on Tuesday after water burst through the breached dam in Novokhovka, submerging streets and homes. Residents in Kherson regions were seen carrying their pets and personal belongings as they waded through inundated streets. The collapse of the Kakhovka reservoir has unleashed a torrent of water, adding to the misery for thousands of people who have been caught on the front lines of the war between Russia and Ukraine. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to travel to China for talks in the coming weeks. Blinken's trip to China had to be postponed earlier after a Chinese spy balloon, an alleged spy balloon, was spotted by the United States, which is now rescheduled. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday and discussed bilateral relations with the kingdom's de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It is being reported that Washington is trying to balance its relationship with Riyadh after years of deepening disagreements on issues ranging from Iran and regional security to oil prices. Blinken is also set to meet other top Saudi officials during his time in Riyadh. The agenda of the trip includes regaining influence with Saudi over oil prices, fending off Chinese and Russian influence in the region, and nurturing hopes for an eventual normalization of Saudi-Israel ties. European Union's envoy for dialogue and senior U.S. diplomat Gabriel Escobar met with Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić on Tuesday as part of efforts to ease tensions between Kosovo and Serbia following unrest in the northern region of the country. A political crisis escalated into violence in Kosovo's north last week after ethnic Albanian mayors took office in the region's Serb-majority areas. Clashes in northern Kosovo injured 30 members of the NATO Peacekeeping Committee force, following which NATO deployed 700 additional peacekeepers to Kosovo. The United States imposed sanctions on more than a dozen people and entities in China, Hong Kong and Iran over accusations that they helped procure parts and technology for key actors in Iran's ballistic missile development. The sanctions were pressed on Tuesday following reports of Iran unveiling its first domestically made hypersonic ballistic missile. The U.S. Treasury statement accused Iran's defense attaché in Beijing of coordinating military-related procurements from China. Two individuals were shot dead and many others were left injured as gunfire erupted in a park in Richmond in Virginia on Tuesday as high school graduates and their families left a theater where commencement ceremony had just finished. According to reports, a 19-year-old suspect has been arrested who reportedly knew one of the victims and fired at him in the audience. The mass shooting was United States' 279th in the first 157 days of 2023, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie formally launched his 2024 presidential campaign on Tuesday, joining his party colleagues Donald Trump, Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis in the race to the White House. Christie previously ran for president in 2016 but ended his bid after a disappointing finish at the New Hampshire primary election. However, Chris has not fared well in the public opinion poll thus far, as he netted just 1% support from Republican primary voters compared to Trump, who bagged 49%, and Ron DeSantis, who fetched 19% support. The United Nations General Assembly elected Algeria, Guyana, Sierra Leone, Slovenia and South Korea to UN Security Council on Tuesday for 2-year terms, while Russian ally Belarus was denied a spot. Slovenia beat Belarus in the race for Eastern Europe, receiving 153 votes, while Algeria, Guyana, Sierra Leone and the Republic of Korea ran unopposed. The Security Council is the only UN body that can make legally binding decisions like imposing sanctions and authorizing use of force. Iran officially reopened its embassy in Saudi Arabia's capital Riyadh on Tuesday for the first time in 7 years. Saudi Arabia severed relations with Iran following the storming of its embassy in Tehran in 2016 after a dispute over the execution of a Shiite Muslim cleric. The kingdom has also blamed the Islamic Republic for missile and drone attacks on its oil facilities in 2019. The diplomatic rift came to an end in March after China brokered a deal to re-establish relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has discussed peace talks with a papal envoy. Zelensky said that he urged the Holy See to contribute to the implementation of a Ukrainian peace plan. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Paris and set a construction site trailer ablaze, prompting police to charge and fire tear gas at a pension reform protest in the city. Trade unions in France have been agitating against President Emmanuel Macron's move to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 and force the measure through parliament without a vote. Macron says that it was necessary to lift the legal retirement age to plug a widening pension deficit. However, trade unions say that the money can be found elsewhere, such as by taxing the wealthy more. Peru's President Dina Boluarte was questioned by prosecutors for 3 hours in connection to the dozens of deaths in the anti-government protests following the ouster of former President Pedro Castillo late last year. Boluarte is being probed for the alleged crimes of genocide, aggravated homicide and serious injuries for the deaths of 67 people. However, the president denies such charges and claims that protesters acted violently. An air quality alert has been triggered in the United States as wind is carrying smoke from the Canadian wildfire that has spread from the western province to Quebec. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has issued a poor air quality alert for New England, a day after parts of Illinois, Wisconsin and Minnesota received a similar advisory. Last week, the United States officials from Maryland, Baltimore, Virginia and Pennsylvania reported being impacted by the wildfire smoke. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization arrived in Venezuela on Tuesday to sign a joint strategy agreement with the government to address future challenges such as climate change. UN's regional representative for Latin America visited a soup kitchen in the Caracas community to know more about the government food programs. During the visit, UN and Venezuelan officials will sign a cooperation agreement for the 2023 to 2026 period with the government. "33 people have died in western Russia days after consuming adulterated cider. Dozens others have been reported to be sick in several regions. Authorities have detained one person and have ordered the drink to be withdrawn from sale. As per reports, cider contained lethal amounts of methanol, more than the average amount found in regular alcoholic drinks. A searing heat wave in Bangladesh has spurred the closure of primary schools and have also triggered frequent power cuts. The conditions for residents is getting worse day by day with frequent power cuts. The maximum temperature has soared to 41 degrees Celsius. The meteorological department warned that there is no end in sight as far as the heat is concerned. UNESCO on Tuesday welcomed commitments from Australia to protect the Great Barrier Reef, with the government pledging $4.4 billion to safeguard the natural wonder. The program to implement measures to protect the Great Barrier Reef comes less than a year after a United Nations-backed mission recommended that it should be added to the list of endangered World Heritage Sites. The reef, a living place of immense variety and beauty on the northeast coast of Australia, has been on UNESCO's World Heritage List since 1981. The largest ruby in the world will be auctioned by Sotheby's in New York and is estimated to fetch more than $30 million. This would make the 55-carat ruby, known as the Estrella de Fura, the most expensive ruby ever sold at an auction. The current world record for a ruby sold at an auction was set in May 2015 by Sunrise Ruby, a 25-carat Burmese stone that fetched $30.3 million at Sotheby's in Geneva. Researchers from the University of Cambridge trained a robot to make 8 different salad recipes. PhD student and his colleagues at the university's robotics laboratory devised simple salad recipes, then filmed themselves preparing them. Using computer vision, the robot analyzed each frame of the video and was able to recreate the exact salad recipe. Researchers suggest videos can be a useful source for automating food production. However, countries around the world are scrambling to come up with new regulations for AI as worries about artificial intelligence outsmarting human mind intensifies.